Or is it showing me that it is recording? Oh, it is. So good morning, everybody. I am so happy to be with all of you as we're here to talk about improving your web-based meetings, because all of us probably have a lot of them. Yes. Will you have your video on? Will you raise your hand if you attend a lot of these meetings? Yeah. Look at it. That's why you're here. Will we all see if we can crash the system for a moment and unmute all at the same time in 5 seconds and say a very authentic and enthusiastic hello and good morning to one another in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Hello.
Morning.
Oh my gosh, and it shows different faces. Johanna, you're here. This is so exciting to see everybody. Also, that's me doing an audio check. And now I'm going to do a chat check. I'm going to be giving you the behind the scenes of what I do, why I do, what I do as we're talking. Would you all also put into the chat 2 words? How are you doing this new year? How are you doing this week? Any words are okay, from positive to really not positive. Put them in there, and then everybody take a look at the chat after you have selected. I'm going to keep talking while you're thinking, and I'm going to show you here is the agenda. So, and if you wouldn't all mind muting yourselves, whoever just coughed, thank you for that reminder. It was actually perfect timing. Here is the agenda. Something that's also really helpful when we are doing these kinds of meetings is to put into the chat directly, which I'm doing right now, you see, the agenda, so that people don't have to look at multiple screens to look back at their meeting agenda, the invite perhaps, what are we talking about here? Put it right into the chat for them so they'll get to see it. And now I get to read how you're all doing. Okay, hanging in there. Adrienne, love it. Pam, optimistic and ready to travel. Oh my gosh, right? Renee, busy everywhere. Tammy, also hanging in there. Gemma, trying to refocus. Christine, I'm doing great, ready for a new year. And lots of other comments in between. Angry but hopeful, thank you. Emotional whiplash, thank you. These are all very important. However you are this morning is exactly how I want you to show up. Be comfortable, be relaxed, just be yourself. This is what we're talking about today. If you like the agenda, here it is for you. And here's me. If we're meeting for the first time, I would like to say a warm hello to you. I'm delighted to be with all of you. I live in Flagstaff. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Anybody else East Coasters? I know a bunch of folks I've coached. The first thing they say when they come in the door is like, take the East Coast out of me. It doesn't work here. So I have a chance to work with lots of organizations. This week, the folks that I have talked to are National Park Service, Food and Drug Administration, Arizona State University, City of Flagstaff, Head Start, North Country Healthcare, just to give you an idea of who I work with. So I'm delighted to be here with you. I'm going to show this screen to you too, to say at the beginning of a meeting, always share the purpose. The purpose of today is to enhance your ability to facilitate and participate in web-based meetings. You can either share an agenda, or you can share objectives, or you could do both. But if you are going to show people a screen with a bunch of words, either read it for them and have the little bouncing ball, like how I'm moving my cursor, but then I have to keep admitting people, and moving my cursor, and I've bolded and I've highlighted. So if I'm just gonna share a few words, I'm just gonna talk about a few words here or there, they can see what I'm talking about. It's confusing if I'm paraphrasing the words on the screen because you don't know exactly how to follow along. So this is also, this screen is for those of you who like to know the specifics of what we're doing. But now I'm going to stop my share. I also encourage you to take copious notes today and really pay attention, really tune in, get some questions in mind, because I'm going to have, at the end, I'm going to ask you what questions you might have. Poor Marie Melo's having trouble. I keep letting her in from the waiting room. So now, would you all mind putting into the chat, what's one thing that at least one of your meetings could improve? You'd like something in at least one of your meetings to get better in some way. What is it? put it into the chat. Oh, it's so great to see everyone's faces. Gosh, Tiffany Ferguson, your hair looks incredible. So fun. Okay. Interesting. There's a few trends. Do you see what's coming? I kind of think we're all here for the same thing. Okay, good. A little bit of difference. So we've got engagement and we've got interruptions. We got how do we get people to participate? Keep them coming. We want to see the redundancy. We want to see trends. So if you're like, oh, Adrian already took mine, go ahead and say it anyway, because I want to see what everybody is saying. Oh, the time frame. That's a good one, Gemma. Okay, so we want to get clear on how we want to improve, because if not, you're wasting your time. Today, please stop multitasking if you're trying. That is always my encouragement, because we are not very good at paying attention to multiple things at once. If your email is open, go ahead and be so bold and close it. Just close that whole application so you're focused. And for those of you who are here today on this, we could call this webinar, who's looking for transformation, revolution, make things 1,000 times better and really positive? Just come on, humor me, raise your hands. Let's see it, Emily McFarland, all the way up there in Washington. That's right, excellent. Okay, good. Let's go for transformation, because what an incredible group to be a part of anyway today. So keep your comments coming. Oh, Tina, doing some good law work over there. I'm going to start sharing my screen again. I'm going to encourage all of you to be super competent at whatever you use, whether it's Zoom or Teams, at screen sharing and stopping screen sharing, because it's really annoying when you take too long. Right? Like, how do I screen share? Where's the button? Nobody wants to be part of your learning curve there. So I also encourage you to screen share and not screen share sometimes, because it's much nicer to see a lot of faces, but sometimes we have to share slides. If you know how to press the print screen button and take a picture of this particular slide, please feel free. This is a great assessment. 4 categories. I'm going to ask for you in a moment to write into the chat which of these categories, either 1, 2, 3, or 4, do you struggle with the most? Whether you're the facilitator or someone else is the facilitator, these are the 4 categories. And number 1 is the how: animation, enthusiasm, variety, comfort, sincerity, it not being too long. Now, if you're like Elizabeth Vogler, who never struggles with enthusiasm, you might struggle if somebody else is kind of monotone and boring during their meeting. Number 2 is, are you prepared? Are other people prepared? Is there some organization to it? Number 3 is about staying on track, keeping track of old meeting minutes and notes, being able to refer back to old decisions, that kind of thing. And the 4th is at the end. What did we decide? What are our next steps? Instead of good meeting. So everybody, just real quickly, put a number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4 into the chat, if you don't mind. Oh, look at that. Okay, a bunch of 1s, some 4, 3, 2. Okay, I like the diversity. One thing about facilitating through a remote setting, and you'll see this over and over again, I hope it becomes a big takeaway for you, is that it's okay to be bossy. So Teleria, would you mind unmuting with me for a second, and your beautiful Aurora Borealis? Thank you. How's your day?
Going as well as can.
Oh, I love it. I've had those days too. Hanging in there, surviving. Wonderful. So can I ask you, what do you want to improve? If you wouldn't mind sharing, what do you want, how could the quality of your meetings improve?
I would like for my meetings to have improved understanding after the meetings, but also to have more efficient meetings.
Oh, love it. So that afterwards, everyone's on the same page and like, yeah, we got this and we know the plan. And efficient, which is often about
Correct.
pace. And what are we here to do, instead of we got off track over here and now we're chatting about what movie everyone's seen, and then now we're going down some rabbit hole. Is that kind of it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Raise your hand, anybody, everybody, if you can relate to either of those two things that Teleria just shared. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for unmuting with me. Now, I'm going to keep talking about it's okay to be bossy in Zoom. Just like I just asked Teleria to unmute and share with me, I would also like to say if I do that to anybody ever, you are more than welcome to say pass, and I won't ask you any questions about it. Either you're not in the mood, you weren't paying attention, you just want to listen, whatever it is. But it is okay to just say someone's name because it is super annoying in remote meetings for me to say, would anyone like to comment on this? And then it's quiet for about 8 seconds. And then both Lauren and Stephanie are like, oh no, you go for, oh no, go ahead, right? Just be bossy. And it's nice to hear people in voice like Teleria just was, but if we have a big old group, we don't want to hear a lot of voices. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again. And let's keep talking. Keep your questions formulating in your mind. Write them down if you've got them, because we'll get there. And this resource, Boring Meetings Suck, is one of my faves. So who here, even though you can see only about 5 people, and Jen Reckner, if you're able to turn on your video, we'd love it. Johanna, Renee, if you're able to turn on your video, I will never force anybody, but it's perfect. And we don't even mind if you're eating. That's why you are turning it off. We'd like to see you. I will encourage each and every one of you to use the #1 strategy for better communication with Zoom or with Teams or whatever, which is seeing each other. Usually when we don't see each other, it's because the person's trying to multitask and the culture of the organization has made it okay. Sometimes it's about, I'm eating and I don't want you to have to see what I'm eating. Sometimes it's about, I just got an emergency phone call, but it's usually about, I'm going to try and multitask. So if you can, please ask everybody to turn on their cameras. So who here facilitates meetings? Great. Who here is a hostage ever at terrible meetings? Not terrible, maybe they're terrible. Okay, great. So we know what it's like to be both. So write these down. If you are the facilitator, this is what matters. First of all, your energy. The attendees typically rise to or sync to the energy level of the facilitator. And all you've got are a tone of voice and your intonation and the words you use. There's a little bit of body language, but not a ton. So bring it. Even if your meeting is just a half an hour and you don't have any energy, can you put all of your energy into that short meeting? And then get help. If you have more than 5 people, can you have a moderator to keep an eye on the room and interrupt at will and take minutes? If you are taking your own minutes, definitely stop it. When I was the Dean of Education at a small college, there wasn't a hierarchy in terms of, I didn't have an assistant attend the faculty meetings, but I just asked a very kind and wonderful person named Kathy if she wouldn't mind taking minutes at all of those, because I can't, even in a physical environment, right, talk and take my own minutes and pay attention and all of that. So can you ask somebody else to moderate and help? Then we've got, this is like what you were talking about, Teleria, and I sure hope I'm pronouncing your name right, because now I've said it like 75 times. Record decisions and action steps. Can someone other than you take the minutes? And yes, always take minutes. And then the attendees, who really needs to attend? Be cutthroat. That is for in-person or remote, but tell them it's not personal. You just don't need to be there. So here are these, plus one more, tips. Be bossy, right? I've already mentioned that. Be clear as much as possible. If you really want to give this advice to anybody, is there anyone you really want to give this advice to? You're like, I want to tell the person who's my facilitator to do that. You can always blame training. That is one of the best things about training. You can blame your advice on training. So I would go to the person who runs my meetings and I would say, hey, I just had the opportunity to attend this training about remote meetings, web-based meetings, And I learned a few things that I think could really be helpful in our efficiency or helpful in our engagement in our meetings. Would you be open to having a 15-minute conversation? I can give you some of those ideas. Then it doesn't sound like you're judgy and saying, I know better than you. Yes? Blame training. If you've not taken a training, go and read an article for 5 minutes that it's probably going to support what you think, right? If you have like an intuition about like, we shouldn't let that one person dominate 95% of the meeting. You're probably right on. Just go find some support about that. Okay, so now purpose and design. Here's a few tips, and then I'm going to unshare and ask people to comment again. First, state the meeting objective every time. If you don't know the meeting objective, cancel the meeting. With each agenda item, this is one of my favorite hot tips, so capture this. Be clear if it's decisional, brainstorming, or informational. At those same meetings that I was just alluding to, my favorite meetings, I've come a long way, so please don't judge, was when no one else talked but me. It's because I only had a half an hour and I had so much stuff and I wanted to keep the pace going like that. And I still remember two particular folks who I love them dearly, but at the time I was frustrated. I'd see their hands going up and I was like, no. What I now have learned is they thought we were having discussion. I thought I was informing them. So it wasn't clear. So I was annoyed by the people because they were doing their best to interpret. So if I say, okay, we're going to talk about this topic, we've got 5 to 7 minutes on the agenda, we're going to by the end make a decision collectively. Is it decisional? Or I just like to hear a few ideas. That's brainstorming. Or it's informational. I'm going to share information. Just please only ask me if you have any desperate questions. Last, or the next one is put the most important topics first. That's with any meeting. And here's my question for you. In this remote environment, should your meetings be all about business? Yes or no? Put a Y or put an N into the chat if you don't mind. Yes, it should be all about business. No, it shouldn't be all about business. Y or N. I think the no's have it. Do you think that? Christine Whalen, would you mind unmuting for a moment and tell us your thoughts? Why did you say no?
Well, because I think the way my division manager does it, he likes to start off with the casual I think, go around, see how everybody's doing in hopes that will get people from sidetracking when we start talking about things. So that's the technique he uses, just to check in, make sure everybody's good, and then he gets down to business.
Gotcha. And so you like how he does it. He doesn't, like, in quotes, waste too much time. Is that right?
Right. But we do tend to go off subject sometimes, and
Got it.
I don't know how to bring people back.
Good. And
I don't like to think that I'm the bottom one because it's not my, okay. Let's get back to what he's talking about.
Great. So let me comment on that. And Gina Neighbors said the same thing. And Christine, I'm going to guess that the reason you have your video off is because you have low bandwidth, because I even heard how I missed a few words. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You have a pass just for today. So, so the thing is I agree. People want connection. People are craving connection right now, but make it either part of the agenda or make it a pre-meeting piece. Have a time set for it. And you can even have specific activities to help people bond if you want. So for example, let's try out this activity. Will everyone grab something? This is an icebreaker you could use. It's my favorite one on Zoom. Everyone grab something within their 10-foot vicinity that represents how this week has been for you so far, and then show it to us. Yeah, keep them up. Don't put them down. I know it feels funny to keep holding them. Keep them up. Some of them are funny and some of them are not fun. Oh, so I think that's an avocado plant, Gemma. Even it is? Yes, I nailed it. And I see a banana and I see a few coffee mugs. I'm making my own interpretation of what I think those are. Hydration, number crunching, glasses. I don't love seeing the Kleenexes because I feel worried. Emily McFarland, you need to tell us what that thing is and why you're holding it up. Great, and everyone can put theirs down.
It's a pin we got for our holiday party, and it has a little hamburger on it. So it's just kind of crazy, I guess.
Perfect. So your week has been a little bit crazy.
A little bit.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So thank you everyone for that little creative piece, but that is a way that you can make it not all about business. Just have a scheduled time for it. Be clear about what you're asking people to do. I'd like for everyone to now share about their weekend. Everybody's got 20 seconds. I'm going to use the timer. I mean, you can even do something like that. We're not doing that. I'm just using that as an example. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the sharing of my screen. And you get to make a lot of decisions, but I want you to be intentional. So if it's going to just be about business, that is also okay. Be clear about that and have that be part of your plan. Then we've got, how can I maximize engagement? That's what so many of you said. So that little icebreaker that I just did, my hope is you're going to use that at your next meeting. My hope is that you're going to use that maybe even at every meeting because it doesn't get old. It's different every time. Another tip that I already demonstrated, but just to make sure you have it in your notes, is within the first minute, get people talking and get people writing. Let them know that the pace is a bit more engaged and faster instead of I'm going to just check out and be passive and now maybe turn off my video and now maybe do my emails. So I want to ask you, the first minute matters. As with a presentation, if you're given a TED Talk, the first minute matters. It's all about the hook. If you barely have any energy at all, put it all into the first minute. Can you ask a question every 1 to 3 minutes? Wouldn't it be great for your next meeting for yourself, for you to press record, only for you to then watch yourself afterwards and not beat yourself up, but just to watch yourself? How often am I asking questions? How often am I encouraging engagement? And so now I'd like for us to try it. Will everyone put into the chat? I want you to think really concretely. What's the next meeting that you are about to facilitate? It might be in 2 hours. It might be in 2 weeks. What is one question at that meeting you could ask within the first minute? It doesn't matter if we have no idea what you're talking about. You're going to put it into the chat. Or it could be something very human, like it could be like, what did everybody have for breakfast this morning? Or who's familiar with this software or something like that? And I often say, I want to see your physical hand. Don't take the time to use the little, the emoji kind of thing. So go ahead, everyone, put a question into the chat. Let them come on in. And copy any of these. The reason we're sharing is that you can learn from one another. We have so many tremendous leaders on this call today. Everyone here is a leader. You know this, but leader being, you're the leader of your own life, even if you're not considered a boss or that kind of thing. What's your New Year's wellness goal? Yeah, Rhonda, love it. Name one surprising thing you learned recently. That's beautiful. What about the weather? I love that one. What about the weather? Do you want to have control of your client's info? I love it. Did anyone, this is kind of hilarious. I want to say it with a tone too. Did anyone read the notes from the last meeting? Just kidding. I'm sure your tone wouldn't be like that. How's the New Year's treating you? Great. How's everybody feeling? So look at these. Who's your favorite pop icon? Me growing up in Pennsylvania, my first thought is that you meant soda because we say pop instead of soda, but I don't think he means soda. So wonderful. Ask questions, get people's brain instead of flatlining to have some engagement. Then that energy, that momentum will continue into the conversation. Okay. maximize the chat feature. The one thing that I think is far superior in remote meetings compared to in-person meetings is the chat feature. You can have everybody answer at once, all at once. Whereas what we've just done would take 15 minutes at times with some of the different questions. So keep people's mind engaged. If you aren't using the chat feature often, either what'll happen is people will get bored, or they'll start using the chat feature for something else, like to kind of have like side conversation and comments. The one thing that I'm not really talking about today is the breakout room feature, because, I did hear that Teams just launched a breakout room feature, but I haven't yet seen anybody use it yet. Zoom, I love the breakout room feature. It is my favorite feature to put people in small groups, have them chat for a few minutes, and then come on back. So make sure that you're using that as well. Here's a good quote for you. You can stick it on your wall. It's a lack of clarity that creates chaos and frustration. Can I get an amen? The people who are the money people, the Johannas of the call, you are like, yes, can everyone remember that? Clarity creates chaos. That's funny. A lack of clarity creates chaos. So tell people what you want. Tell people how to engage. If you're not doing it, if you're asking everybody, can everybody comment, and nobody's commenting, think about what you could do differently. One thing you can do differently if nobody is commenting is you send the agenda out ahead of time, but you tell them what to come prepared with. Everybody come prepared to share 3 ideas about this one particular topic, so that you don't get crickets when it's time. Also, if you're getting crickets, still start with small groups. Think, pair, share. It's a teaching philosophy, right? Let people think for a minute, pair with just one partner, and then bring everybody back. And then I might ask, Renee, what did you and your partner talk about? That's a good way to get better engagement with large groups. So now, beyond in-person meetings, these are things that are kind of specific to the remote environment. In an in-person environment, being bossy isn't the best, but here it's very helpful because it helps with clarity. You also want to get clear. Are you going to start on time? Or are you not going to start on time? Are you going to end on time, or are you not going to end on time? Get clear. So of the 5 people I can see right now, I'm counting on you. Do your meetings typically start on time, meaning everybody has arrived by the 9 o'clock on the dot and you're ready to go? Okay, of all the people, I see 0 hands. That's so interesting. Okay, so you get to decide and make it clear. Whatever you want it to be, just make it clear. The facilitator, if you're the facilitator, please, for the love of everything holy, get on early. Make sure you're clear. All you need is 5 minutes, but don't be the last one. Don't be the one who all of a sudden your computer needs to update whenever you're supposed to run the meeting, because not only is that going to make you stressed, but everyone else is going to be confused as to why it's not starting early and maybe frustrated. Get clear, videos on or off. Those of you who have kids who are doing online school right now, it seems that the teachers aren't allowed, in my kids' environments anyway, they're 12 and 16 at 2 different schools. The teachers aren't allowed to say you must turn your video on, because it's like an equity kind of issue. But in the work environment, I think it can be quite different. If you can get people to have their videos on, I think it's good, but make it clear. The display name, you all seem quite skilled at having a good display name, meaning I know your name even if I don't know you. But if not, it just defaults to a first name and a first initial and last name. Should that be changed? Should people have a photo on? So for example, when I stop sharing my video like this, it puts a picture. That's my super fancy picture. And then call on people. I've mentioned this. Tell them when and how they will get to contribute. So for example, I might say, so I'm going to share this with you for the next 7 minutes. After that, I'm going to want to hear people's comments or thoughts. If not, people think they're just going to be talked at the whole time and they start to tune out. That's just what happens. And do we stick to the allotted amount of time on the agenda, or will we discuss until finished? That is a very important distinction. So years and years ago, I'm going to unshare while I tell a story. Years ago, I used to attend these meetings, and the meetings had about 23 people in them. And I was just one of the people not running the meeting. The meeting was supposed to be an hour. It ended up often being like 2.5 hours. I am very efficiency minded. I at one time wrote an article called My Love Affair with Efficiency and My Road to Recovery. And so I was like crawling out of my skin. Can anyone relate? Yes. So I thought, okay, Julie, how can I empower myself? What could I do to try and influence this? And that's when I was like, okay, I could read some articles. I could read a book, Boring Meetings Suck. I can go back to my boss, make some suggestions. I went back, asked if she was open to talking. She was. We talked about suggestions. It was great. We had this idea. She had this idea that we bring an egg timer. And so when people's section was up, so for example, if it was Gina's turn, and we had pre-decided she had 5 to 7 minutes. At 7 minutes, it's like, right? But then what would happen, and I didn't plan for this, my boss would wave me aside like, okay, thanks, and keep going. And I was like, this was not part of the master plan. The reason I'm sharing this story of resilience and perseverance is that you're going to go back, you're going to be well-intentioned, you're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to like make these meetings incredible. And then something's going to get in the way. It's not going to go as you planned. Something's going to be frustrating. Something you wanted to try isn't going to work. And you're going to try 79 more times to keep fighting the good fight to make it engaging. Yes, Tina, are you with me? I see you're nodding. I love it. Yes, because it is worth it. Meetings are the most expensive things out there, right? If I was to take all of your salaries for this hour and put them in a pot and raffle it off at the end, that would be really great. So we want to make sure we have the most bang for our buck during these times. So as we're continuing on, we're about halfway through. I want to share some tech hacks for you. From the folks I can see, will you show a show of hands if you think you're pretty tech savvy on these remote meetings? Some nods, but you're feeling like too embarrassed to like raise your hand and be like, oh, I am. Okay, good. So we're going to talk about tech hacks, but these are the things that don't work virtually. One, if more than 3 people are on a call, having people contribute when inspired, right? Just feel free to jump in if you have a thought, unless you have a group that is extremely comfortable with interrupting, and there is an art to interruption. People aren't going to contribute, or they're just going to hang back because they're like, I don't want to fight for airspace, or when is it my turn, or it's a little bit awkward. So just make the meeting more efficient by calling on people, or even going in a particular order. If you want to hear from everyone, just say, I've got a participant list right here. I'm going to just go down and say, okay, Renee, you're up. Jen, you're up. Emily, you're up. And ask if people are okay with that, because they like to be asked, but they'll say yes. What doesn't work is posing a question or a topic and then asking someone to contribute. This is very important, because if I was to say a whole thing and then say, and what are your thoughts, Renee? They say, I think the stats are that 63% of the time our mind is wandering, that we are distracted in life. Isn't that fascinating? So it's embarrassing, and it doesn't give somebody grace if you ask the question and then their name at the end. Always say their name at first, and then say the question, the prompt, the thought, because you don't want to embarrass people and that kind of thing. It doesn't work to not have an agenda, because then your meeting is all over the place. It's a mess. It's not efficient. I know that you might be running from meeting to meeting. There's a particular group that I work with. Some of you are represented on this call today, who you say that my meetings are back to back and back to back. So I am writing the meeting agenda for the next meeting in the previous meeting. Is there a way that you can say no to 1 or 2 meetings so you have a little more breathing room, so you can prep and prepare a little bit better? Okay, assuming that everyone's familiar with the agenda and expecting dynamic conversation. So if you said one of the things I'm expecting is dynamic conversation, but you're not doing each one of these little pieces, now you have a bunch of tools, right? You're going to put the agenda into the chat. When you, a week before, or at least an hour before, send out the agenda, you're going to say, please come prepared to discuss X, Y, or Z. You're going to use the breakout feature. You're going to get people talking within the first minute or two. You're going to have people have a little bit of fun. You're going to have people unmute for a moment so everyone gets to use their voice. You're going to do all these things, and your quality is going to improve in terms of your engagement. Oops. And just sharing the meeting minutes afterwards with absentees. What that means is, in this environment, we have the opportunity to record. You can record and share because meeting minutes are very different than the nuances that happened during the meeting. So record, and then share that with people afterwards. Okay. So now, helpful tech hacks. While you're reading these, I'm going to ask for you to start thinking about if you have any questions. One of my favorite tech hacks is the upper right corner one, a quick way to mute or unmute, depending on if you're in Teams or if you're in Zoom, is if you're in Zoom, you can all try it right now. You press, okay, hold on. Unless you're the facilitator, I guess you can't do that. Or if I'm on my PowerPoint. Anyway, press and hold the space bar. That'll make you mute or unmute. It'll have you change. Oh yeah, Emily just tried it. I saw, look, there she goes. In Teams, it's Control-Shift-M. It seems a little more convoluted, but these are all different ideas. For anyone who has a question, will you put a Q, just the letter Q, into the chat box, and then I'm going to call on you and you're going to get to ask your question. The sky is the limit as long as it's connected to web-based meetings. We would love to hear. Kate, would you mind unmuting and asking your question? And Susan, you'll be next.
You're in the chat, pressing the space bar does not work.
Oh, yeah, exactly. If you are in somewhere else, like if you have just touched something else, that's true. It won't. Good point.
That was not my question. Do you have any tips on how to avoid over talking or talking over each other?
Okay, so not over talking, meaning not someone's talking too much.
Yeah, talking over each other, or 2 or 3 people jumping to answer the question at the same time.
Yes, for sure.
Aside from maybe getting everyone to raise their hands.
That's perfect. I am all about order. And actually, what I've just done could be perfect. So Q for question, C for comment. The city of Flagstaff does this a lot. And just ask, if you've got a comment, go ahead and put a C into the comment area, and then I will call on you. And that way you also then get to pick who gets to go first, second, and third, because you might want to have the person who talks a lot go last. Is that helpful?
Yes, particularly for larger groups. What if there's only like 5 of you? And it's kind of intimate, but.
Good question. So first, if you want to just have an order, right? Like, okay, so I've got the list of everyone here. So Kate, do you have something? So here's the question. Kate, do you have anything you want to share? Susan, how about you? Emily, how about you? Tellery, how about you? And it's completely fine if you don't have anything. I'm just going to call on people. That's one piece. And the other piece, Kate, is possibly having creating communication ground rules ahead of time, which is about, if we have a 5-person meeting, that's a standing meeting, what do we want to agree to just in general with our meetings? One thing would be that I talk 1/5 of the time. Helpful?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Good question. Look at your good questions. Susan, how about you?
So your little widget says print screen button to take photo, and I don't know how to do that. Can you show how to do that?
Yes. Oh, look at this. I have a fancy camera. Okay, here we go. Okay. Am I showing it? That That button says print screen PRT SC. If your keyboard doesn't have that, I have no idea what to do. I bet you could just Google and say, just Google that. If I don't have print screen, what? Oh, and Carrie just held up her phone, and so you could just take a picture with your phone. Yeah, great. Love it. Pam, bring a question.
So my tech person told me that in Zoom, the chats are recorded, but also if you have a private chat with someone and you're recording the meeting, it will record the private chat. Do you know that that's true? We've never tried it.
That's a good question. I don't know because I'm not sure. I should just say I'm not sure. But that's
Okay.
kind of funny in that everyone be careful. I have seen
Yeah.
many groups get in trouble. Oh, just don't bad talk in the private chat. That's just a good, important rule. Great. And then, okay, people are putting in a lot of great comments in there. And great, oh, cute. Marion, how do I ask kindly to get back on the subject? Yes, good for you, Marion, great question. Okay, so doing it not in the moment is the best. So it's gonna happen again, right? Is there a way for you to say, okay, we've been having this particular meeting for a while now. Part of our agenda now for these 5 minutes is going to be talk about what's working and what's could be improved. And then you're going to have people do good critical thinking and assess. These are the things that are working. We're starting on time. These are the things that are working. Everybody's engaged. The things that aren't working are sometimes we tend to go off on tangents. Sometimes we go beyond the meeting time. Whatever it might be, when people can speak generically, it's much more comfortable. Then you get to create, like we were talking with Kate about communication ground rules or guiding principles. Have somebody then take notes and write, this is what we're going to agree to moving forward. And then if one of the issues that you're going to bring up is one of the things that's not working is we get off topic, then you're also going to talk about it in that moment of like, okay, so what should we all do if we need to have what we call an intervention? We've somehow gotten off topic and I am noticing that we're off topic. What are we going to say that anybody in the group is empowered to do? And so to have that conversation is great. If for some reason you can't have that conversation, even just to say, hey, I'm noticing, it's my favorite language. I'm noticing that we seem to be, it's what we call tentative language. It's not really direct. I'm noticing that we seem to be talking about something that's not on the agenda, and then make a suggestion. I wonder if we could save that to the end of the meeting. I wonder if we could put that into the parking lot. I'm wondering if we could put that on the next agenda. I wonder if we should get back on track. It's kind, it's gentle, it gives grace, and it doesn't then leave you feeling like a hostage. Marion, is that helpful? Great. Adrian.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Perfect. You're welcome. You're welcome. And I also like to do that check-in after I'm done saying something. It's just a question to be, if you're like, no, that actually wasn't answering my question. So whenever we're done talking, it's really nice to offer up a question to invite the other person or whoever into the conversation. Adrian, you've got a question. Bring it.
I do. Thank you. I, for the life of me, cannot figure out how to, like, say I'm presenting like a actual like PowerPoint presentation. How do I have the present screen already up? I feel like I always have to screen share and then they see me click present. And I would love to streamline that. Thank you.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. So I'm going to try something. I'm going to try and show you. I'm just going to show you my screen. Okay, so this is going to look weird for a second. Okay, so you all can see the PowerPoint still right now, right? Okay, so can you still see my screen? Yes, okay, this is good. So This right here, I'm in slideshow. You can see where I'm pointing right now, slideshow, and then set up slideshow. This is the magic thing. You have it here instead of here. You got to change it. It defaults to here. And now I go here. And when I enlarge my PowerPoint, I still at the bottom have all my icons. But when I'm in the first one, I can't. The other thing is if you ever do have to share your, when it's not in presenter view, you can always shrink this down so they don't see your notes. Because like, for example, right here, oh, it's not wanting to, maybe I have too many things happening. I don't quite know what this little, what's this just blank screen, but you can see all of my notes. Right? They should all be right there. We're just going to stop sharing again. Okay, Adrienne, did that make sense?
It did. Thank you. I'll have to do some trial and error just to make sure I'm comfortable. Thank you.
Yeah, it is a game changer. I was presenting one time at a conference and they taught me that. And I was like, oh my gosh, you have just saved my life. That's just changed everything for me. Great. Okay, so we're going to just keep moving along. I am gonna close my whole PowerPoint for a second because that like super tripped it out. It just made all the slides go blank, which I've never had happen, but I'm gonna talk us just through it as I'm closing it and opening it back up because that's sometimes what we need to do. And it's all back. I just closed it. I kept my cool. I didn't freak out. And now I'm pressing, turning on the slideshow like we were just talking about, but my icons are still at the bottom. And now I can go share screen and it should work. Oh, screen share has failed to start. The window you selected is invalid. This is comical. Okay, so we're just going to pause for a moment and I'm not going to try it. I'll try it in another 10 seconds or so. Okay, so the last slide that I have for you is the top 12 most common virtual meeting problems. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is go to your team afterwards and show them this. Look, kept my cool, opened it back up. Sometimes technology sucks because it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, and now it's working. So this is what you can take back to your team and say, hey team, how are we doing on all these things? So the first is when we're not clear about the purpose of the meeting. So go and ask, are we clear about the purpose? How is our first minute? Is our agenda being given during the meeting? Are we telling participants when and how to contribute? This is also kind of the summary. 5, is the facilitator prepped, including energy and affect? 6, are we maximizing the chat feature? 7, are we being too tolerant, AKA not being clear about expectations and not holding folks to it? For example, if you want everyone to have their videos on, are you not having an intervention to say, hey, I notice your video's not on? Are we forgetting to make connection a priority, and how might we do that? Our optics. Is anyone too far away from the camera? Are people eating too much? Is the angle of the camera weird? Like, are we looking up someone's nostrils? Is there bad lighting and someone looks like they're in witness protection? Does it look like people have just rolled out of bed and forget that they're kind of supposed to still look like they're dressed for work? I've heard that complaint a lot from bosses. So if you're wondering, go ask your boss, is it okay that I'm wearing the sweatshirt and a messy bun? Not looking directly at the black circle. This is where you should look when you're talking. It's hard and you can't always, but that helps people feel like you're having eye contact. And there we go. Distractions. How are our distractions? Are we allowing distractions? Are we participating in distractions? And are people passive? Are they just quiet? Are they just tolerating this meeting? Can we get people engaged? And the last one, are our groups, are our people presenting or participating and needing some tech training? Of those 12, would you put a number into the chat? Which of these has your group struggled with the most that you're going to now try and change? Ooh, 8's a popular one. 7, 6, 8, 10, and 9. I'm glad nobody is sitting there writing 1, 2, 3, 4. These are great. 7 might be the most popular one. And that is true for in-person meetings as well. And it's absolutely okay because you're right now is the beginning of the new year. It's perfect. You're putting the pause button on and you're saying what's working, what's not, and can I have a conversation with my team about that? And then can we really uphold expectations? Good. 1 and 9, 12. Okay, so great. Lots of things that it sounds like you can perhaps work on and move forward with. We've got an additional 8 minutes together, and at the very end, I'll stay on for a few minutes if you're like, I had a desperate question that I didn't yet get to ask. So now I want to ask you, here's a quiz. That's also something you can do in your meetings. You can say at the end of this, if you're doing a presentation, there's going to be a quiz. It brings up our like high school brain of like, oh, I got to pay better attention. But tell them at the beginning, I didn't, because this isn't, it's not that kind of quiz. It's not a retention quiz. So I'm going to ask you, would you mind sharing what's your biggest takeaway from today and put it into the chat? What are you going to implement? And it might be something specific that I said. It might be something that someone else asked a question about or wrote about in the chat, or it might even be like you made a connection because a particular topic came up. If you wouldn't mind writing those, putting those into the chat. Oh, I love that, saying the name and then asking the question. Great question every 1 to 3 minutes. It's okay to be bossy. And you can even go to your next Zoom meeting and say, I was just coached that I'm supposed to be more bossy. So I'm going to try it out. At the end, people tell me how it was, if you feel hesitant, right? Okay, good. Meeting objective, maximizing the chat, organization of how participants can respond without talking over each other. Great. Better with tech. Joy. Hi, Joy. Put the Q or the C into the chat. These are great. Bossy. Recap at the end. These are all wonderful. Good. Hold the others accountable, even supervisors. Thank you so much for saying that, because even supervisors want to run good meetings. I mean, maybe even especially. So if you can partner with them and be kind, and again, possibly not in the moment, to say, let's work on some things. It can be really wonderful. We call that whole strategy managing up or coaching up, because bosses have blind spots too. If you are a boss, your next meeting, I encourage you, or the facilitator at the end, I encourage you to say, now would everybody mind taking 1 minute telling me one thing that you appreciated about how I facilitated and one comment in terms of how I could improve or change. And it's not okay to say I'm doing everything perfectly, right? So that's an option.